This first question that we did get dropping in, Simona, it dropped in during your segment, but it is open to all of our panelists here. But Simona, perhaps you want to lead us off. And the question is, as a change in administration is likely at the moment at the SEC, would that new administration overturn any recent proxy rules? And moving forward, what's the SEC likely to be focused on?
Good question. Well, it's very difficult to say. Very difficult for Congress to overturn any rule. In particular, in this case, we're talking about the proxy advice rule and the shareholder proposal rules that are particularly contentious. Especially, it's difficult for Congress, especially if House and Senate we have different majorities under the Congressional Review Act. Also, with pay ratio, if you remember, something similar happened at the time of the pay ratio rule. After the change in administration in 2016 and 17, there were some who advocated for a repeal of pay ratio, including the then acting chair of the SEC, Mike Pivovar, but then the repeal didn't happen. So the recent proxy rules may be overturning courts, possibly, or it's possible that with a new administration, the SEC may decide to offer accommodation or defer the compliance to the rules. In general, I think besides the executive compensation rules that I mentioned earlier, the specific, the pending executive compensation rules that it's possible that the new administration will adopt, it's likely that the SEC will focus on other related corporate governance rulemakings, and some have been already mentioned, like such as the ESG disclosures, diversity and workforce disclosures, requirements of board diversity, and so on.
Thank you so much. And Rami, I want to quickly get this question to you before we start wrapping things up. You mentioned a number of actions. What approaches of various actions discussed have you found been the most commonly executed or the most commonly employed when it comes to the various approaches that were discussed today?
Yeah, so I think on the long-term side of things, you are seeing many companies that are granting retention awards, and that'll probably carry greater burdens when it comes to external disclosure. Some of the actions that companies are taking that we might describe as being safer is pulling levers on the mix of their equity. So in other words, increasing the level of time-based pay. And just in general, I think for anyone that's on the line that is thinking tactically right now about what actions can be taken that has de minimis chance of blowback, so to speak, that would certainly be one, so long as the 50% performance basis continues to be there. I also think that delaying goal setting is an action that companies will be taking in 2021. So not necessarily, at least for the long term, reducing the 3-year performance periods, but it used to be that companies need to set goals fairly early on in the year because of 162M, which is no longer in play. So we do expect companies to try and wait until they view that they have a better line of sight into the goal setting process, recognizing that the longer you wait often comes with accounting implications. I think for the annual and both the long-term side, the measures will be probably the final item that has been and will continue to be very common, where they'll think through the measures themselves, probably fewer measures that are weighted strictly on financial performance, and then where financial performance continues to live, which certainly it will, and likely 50% or more in most cases, playing around with the goals and the range around those goals from threshold to maximum, as well to ensure an appropriate outcome.